Hola chicos, let's take some notes on the present and the past. This should be a total review for every single one of you. Nonetheless, I strongly suggest that you take notes in your notebook. You know why? All right, let's start off by talking about the present indicative. This is the present tense that you have known all along throughout all Spanish courses. The basic present tense, known as the present indicative. We use it to speak about actions in the present that are current, that are actual, that are real facts. Notice the little pencil on the slide right here? That is letting you know that you should be taking notes, especially of this slide. Wherever you see that pencil, be sure to take notes. Let's continue. Looking at examples of the present indicative. I dance at a studio every day. Yo bailo en un estudio todos los días. This is a real fact happening in present day. Not necessarily at this very moment, but it is something that I do on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I do it every day. John lives in Cutler Bay. John vive in Cutler Bay. Currently, John has not moved from his house. His home is in Cutler Bay at this time. That is a fact. So here we use the present indicative. Here you can see our verbs that in Spanish we know all verbs end in either AR, ER, or IR. These are the most common subject pronouns that we use. Yo, tú, él, ella, and usted, that although usted is second person, like tú, it is the formal version of the second person, and it takes the same conjugation as the third person, which is he or she. The nosotros form is the first person plural because I am included, but there are others as well. Then there is ellos and ellas, and of course, ustedes. Ellos and ellas being them or they, and ustedes being all of you, the plural form of the second person. These are the verb endings that you know. We remove the AR, then we add o, as, a, amos, and an for AR verbs. When we remove the ER in ER verbs, we add o, es, e, hemos, and en, according, of course, to the subject. For IR verbs, we do the same thing. Remove the IR, add o, es, e, hemos, and en, according to the subject in the sentence. Irregulars are in every single tense. We must understand that irregulars must always be memorized. There's no other way. So in your language practice, you will eventually memorize these and know how to properly use them and conjugate the verbs. We are still speaking about present tense verbs. I suggest that you take a screenshot. That's why that little camera is at the bottom of the screen. Take a screenshot of this page and identify the verbs that are irregulars. These on this screen right here are irregular in the yo form. Take a look at hacer. It only changes in the yo form to G-O in the ending. The other endings remain the same as we had for regular ER verb endings. So other verbs that act just like hacer and are irregular in the yo form are poner, which becomes pongo, dar, to give, which becomes doy, saber, which becomes sé in the yo form in the first person, conocer, which becomes conozco, salir, salgo, ver, veo, y traer, traigo. Take a screenshot. You should know these as well already, but I just want to refresh them in your memory. There are more irregulars. There are too many to list, as a matter of fact. But let's keep in mind, we have irregulars that are only irregular in the first person, like the ones on the previous screen. We have irregulars that are stem changing, that will change E to IE, O to UE, or E to I. We also have the mixed irregulars. Mixed meaning there's a change in the first person and there's also a stem change in the rest of the conjugations. Keep in mind, though, with irregular verbs, the nosotros form will never change. Other common irregulars that you should know that are just irregular overall, they don't follow a stem changing rule or only in the yo form, are ser, which is to be, estar, which is also to be, and ir. Those are commonly irregular, and they are commonly irregular in most tenses. Because this is too much information, I also suggest you screenshot this page. Keep in mind, when you screenshot, you do need to go back and take a look at it in order to study. The preterite tense. The preterite, we know, is a past tense. This is the first past tense that we will see. It is also the basic past. It is used to speak about actions in the past that are completed. Completed meaning they are over and done with. It means you know when it happened and it is over. For example, you know that the action took place yesterday or last week or last summer or 2 years ago or this morning. Whatever the action we are speaking about, it already took place and we know it took place. It is completely over and done with. We are also using the preterite usually when we are speaking of a one-time event. Notice the pencil. Make sure you're writing this. Let's look at some examples. Last summer, we traveled to Paris. El verano pasado, nosotros viajamos a París. It was last summer. It was one time. We went to Paris. That's it. Another example. I ate a burger for lunch. Yo comí una hamburguesa en el almuerzo. If we're having this conversation after lunch, therefore, we know it is over and done with. It happened, whether it happened 10 minutes ago, whether it happened an hour ago, we understand that for lunch, I ate a burger. Comí. We use the preterite tense. Here are the preterite tense conjugations. Again, write these down. We do the same thing that we did for present indicative. We remove the AR ending, the ER or the IR, which is called our infinitive ending, and then we add the endings listed here. For AR verbs, we will add haste, o, amos, aron. The accents are extremely important. Check out hablo. I said hablo because I'm thinking of it without an accent. Without an accent, it is hablo, as in the present indicative, I speak. So it is imperative that you always put the accent marks where they belong. Just memorize that preterite tense will have an accent on the yo form and on the él, ella, and usted form. Always. Okay, and this one actually on escribió is incorrect. The accent should be over the O. Make sure that you make note of that. The accent on escribió should be over the O, not over this I. Common irregulars in the preterite tense. Screenshot this page. These are commonly irregular in the preterite tense. I will give you the yo form of some of them, but if you need to remember or recall how are they irregular, I suggest you look them up. Take a look at ser. In the preterite tense, ser as in to be. If I want to say I was a teacher, yo fui maestra. Let's change the color on this. Yo fui maestra. If I want to use tener in the preterite tense, yo tuve, tú tuviste, él tuvo. Decir, yo dije. Poner, yo puse. Venir, yo vine. For the rest, you should look them up so that you understand how to conjugate these. But these are irregulars. These do not have accents, okay? And these must be memorized. Now, let's get into another past tense. This is the imperfect tense. The imperfect ends up being used more commonly than the preterite tense. We use the imperfect tense to speak about actions that are in the past, but we do not have a specific beginning or an end. We're not sure when it happened. We know it was in the past, but it's like if I said, when I was a child, I went to such and such place, or I used to do this. We don't know when. We know it's in the past. It is probably not happening anymore. However, we are speaking of a time in the past that we don't specifically know when it was. It's not like it was yesterday or last week or something like that. We also use the imperfect to talk about actions in the past that were happening, an action in progress. So let's say that I am talking about a situation that happened yesterday while I was walking in the park. Yo caminaba por el parque cuando vi una ardilla. I was walking in the park when I saw a squirrel. Caminaba. The action, it was yesterday. I am no longer in the park. It is over. However, I am telling you what was happening in that moment. So I use the imperfect tense. If I want to speak about something that I used to do regularly in the past, maybe every Saturday I went to dance class in the past. Yo iba a clases de baile todos los sábados. You don't know when. Was it when I was younger? Was it last year? Was it, last year, last summer? But every single Saturday. We're not sure, but we do know that the action in the past was repetitive. Maybe I was on a special diet and I only ate chicken. Yo comía pollo todos los días. It was repetitive. It's in the past, but repetitive. We also use it to talk about someone's age in the past. Perhaps last year, María tenía 15 años. Last year. Ella tenía 15 años. And I'm using tenía, although she is no longer 15. I'm not using tuve because with age, the rule automatically is to use the imperfect. We also use the imperfect if I'm referring to time in the past. Eran las 9 de la noche cuando me fui a dormir, cuando me acosté. I'm speaking about the specific time that I went to bed, so I use the imperfect. Here are the endings for the imperfect tense. Same rule. Take the verb hablar, for example. We remove the AR and then we add aba, abas, aba, habamos with an accent, and aba. ER and IR have exactly the same endings in the imperfect tense, accents on all the I's, extremely important. Like the previous verbs, we remove the infinitive endings and we add these new ones. Make sure you write these in your notebook. In the imperfect, there are only 3 irregulars, so we can memorize them all. There are only 3 in the imperfect tense. They must be memorized. The verb ser, which is to be, the verb ir, which is to go, and the verb ver, which is to see. Conjugate, write these in your notebook as well, the little pencil. Write them all in your notebook. They are in order of the persons as we started before. The yo, tú, the él or ella form, the nosotros forms, and the ellos forms. Make sure that you write down all accents and that you memorize these that are irregular especially. Let's do some practice. Mi mamá, cocinar todos los días. This is an action that happens every day. We don't know that it was in the past, so let's assume it is present indicative. It is the present tense. So, assuming it is the present indicative tense, mi mamá is ella, cocinar is an AR verb, mi mamá cocina todos los días, presently. Number 2. Ayer nosotros escribir los apuntes. Ayer is yesterday, letting us know it was in the past. And it's the nosotros form of an IR verb. Los apuntes are our notes. Y we wrote them yesterday. Ayer nosotros escribimos los apuntes. Notice the preterite and the present have exactly the same conjugation in the nosotros form. So be careful. However, we know that this is a preterite conjugation because it says ayer. That's what lets us know that we are using a past tense. And because it happened one time, over and done with, we are using the preterite and not the other past that we already know. Okay, número 3. Tu blank. Ir is the verb. Todos los veranos a Colombia durante tu niñez. Because this was during your childhood, it was every single summer. You are probably no longer a child. We are going to use the imperfect tense. The verb ir is irregular, therefore we must use the form of the verb ir. Please write that conjugation down in the imperfect tense. Número 4. Anoche, last night. Therefore happened, over and done with. Comer and Outback, it's the yo form. We're going to also use the preterite tense. Please write in that conjugation. And lastly, la número 5. Cuando eran novios, when you were boyfriend and girlfriend, when you were dating, ustedes siempre, always, repetitive. Hablar por teléfono hasta muy tarde. What tense do you think we're going to use here? We will use the imperfect tense. The imperfect. Because this, we don't know clearly when it happened. It was when you were dating. I don't know how long ago that was. It was always, we know the action repeated itself. Okay? So therefore, we will use the imperfect. Please conjugate the imperfect as well. For number 3, your answer should be ibas. For number 4, it should be comí. And for number 5, it should be hablaban. Thank you so much for your attention. There's a winky face. You know what that means.